For the first time ever, I am thrilled to say we have an official sponsor for the Dirt Talk podcast, and that's Ariat. I've worn Ariat boots on every job site I've visited over the years, traveling in them across 5 continents. More importantly, I have yet to find a single project where working folks, unlike me, are not wearing Ariat boots and workwear in every condition imaginable. And there's really good reason for that, and that's because it's phenomenal stuff. And the more I've learned about Ariat and the company, the more I've loved their brand. So with this, Ariat is offering any Dirt Talk listener 10% off their next Ariat order at ariat.com/dirttalk. That's 10% off boots, jeans, and workwear at ariat.com/dirttalk or at the link in this episode's description. With that, let's get to the show. Monday, Dirt Talk episode. Haven't been in the studio in a while to do these. I have been traveling Europe. And that's what today's podcast is going to be about. Some questions people have asked me online about our recent Europe trip. If you have other questions about Europe or anything under the sun, you can always send them over to dirttalk@buildwith.com. We would love to hear from you. I always appreciate seeing what you all have to say, good and bad. And a lot of these just came from my direct messages on Instagram. I try to get to everybody online, so if you send me a message, if you're trying to sell me something, probably won't get back to you. Or if you're looking for a job and you're from India or Iran, probably not going to get back to you. If you send me weird memes, probably not going to get back to you. But otherwise, I try to get back to everybody. And most of the time, I actually do. So, with that said, question 1. How receptive are European contractors to media visits versus American contractors? Well, there are similarities. I tell everybody that the actual job site visits are the easy part. That is the absolute, in a lot of ways, easiest part of my job. When it comes to shooting on job sites, mine sites, I spend a majority of my time focused on approvals and logistics. So making the trip make sense. And a trip like this was probably the most logistically complex trip I've ever planned, with how many countries we visited and how many different sites and companies and people. It was very complex. So there's a lot of time spent on those details and making sure it all makes sense. But then there's also just the matter of approvals. When I started doing this 6.5, 7 years ago now, I couldn't even get approval to go see a skid steer working on a driveway. And that's me being a little bit facetious, but not really. It was really hard to get access to anything at all. And I have chipped away over the past 6-7 years at the construction industry. I've chipped away at the mining industry. I've chipped away at other industries. I've built a lot of great relationships. I've spent a lot of time with people and now enjoy some pretty incredible access. And I think people, they see our access and just, I don't know, assume it's been easy or it has just happened. They just stumble into what we're doing nowadays. Oh, wow, you just have everybody reaching out all the time. And no, it's the result of hundreds and at this point thousands of visits, thousands of handshakes, of relationships developed, of us proving ourselves over here with this company, then leveraging that relationship over here. It is a very tangled web. And even after developing all the relationships we have and doing all the work we have over the past 7 years, I still get told to go fuck myself all the time in the United States. I don't know what it is, but American contractors are still, the good ones aren't. I think the future focused ones are not. But the more traditional ones are still so much in the world that is, we don't want attention. We don't want anybody knowing we're here, even though everybody knows we're here. And we're just going to do our job. And yeah, it's worked great for many decades, sometimes over a century. But it's not going to work into the future from a workforce standpoint. And I think the companies that are getting ahead, we call them the winners. They've identified this, they're getting out ahead of it, and they are putting themselves out there for the sake of building that brand, attracting that future workforce. In America, it's really hard. In Europe, there are still some of the same challenges when it comes to approvals, jumping through hoops, whatever it is. The contractors still like to see everything we put together after the fact, especially contractors we've never visited, which is fine because they think, oh, cameras are going to be on the site, media. And unfortunately, the media doesn't have the best reputation. Well, I don't know if that's unfortunate. It's actually starting to work out pretty well for the world, but they think it's just going to be a complete shit show. We come in, we're professionals. We do this. We specialize in this work. And so I can't go shoot a wedding very well, but I can shoot a job site really damn well at this point. I can shoot a mine really damn well at this point. I know what to look for. I know what not to look for. I know what to take pictures of. I know what not to take pictures of. And usually they approve everything, no problem. Oh, wow, these guys know what they're doing. And then the next visits are even easier, way easier. But I feel like just overall, the European contractors, European construction operations, they want to share more of what they're doing. They are more progressive. They are trying to get ahead of educating the public as far as what the heck's going on there. They want to be a great member of the community. And so I think they are, again, way more open. Like my first visit to Eberhard a few years ago with Shea Stutzman, I don't think many American contractors would just invite another contractor out and say, yeah, just check out everything we're doing. And that's Eberhard's approach. It's way more open, more collaborative as well. I think the companies, they compete with one another, but they also work a lot better with one another as well. It feels like everybody's in it together, not just beating the shit out of each other like it is here in the States. And they have to be together because that's how the industry succeeds, and they're further ahead than we are. So they've had to come together and march in the same direction as one to tackle some of these challenges. It's not perfect. It's not like that in every country we visited, but it's pretty consistent. I mean, we went to Great Britain, Denmark, Spain, Switzerland, Germany, and Iceland. And every company we visited was more than friendly, more than happy to have us there. Come on down, show us, you can see whatever you want. And these are not little baby construction operations. These are big time companies, big time operations. And it was refreshing for me as an individual that loves the dirt world, that wants to share the dirt world, to have this access, to be invited in, and to have the opportunity to share it all. So I think European contractors are more receptive to what I'm doing, to media in general, to storytelling in general. And I think American construction is going in that direction. It's just a matter of time, and we're here to help make it happen. All right, question 2. How is traveling with gear across Europe? Well, it's similar to how we travel with gear anywhere. There's no difference to how we travel with gear, no matter where we're going. South America, Asia, Australia, Europe, anywhere, Middle East. I have the exact same system that I've ironed out over the 7 years I've been doing this. As I just explained, our trips are logistically complex. And so this trip was 8 different countries, I think over 10 flights, a lot of driving, trains, at least 15 different places I stayed, I think maybe even 18 on this trip. And so if we're somewhere for 2 nights in a row, it's really nice. If we're somewhere for 3 nights in a row, that's almost unheard of. Typically, it's bouncing around different city, different place, different country every day. And to move that quickly, we have to be minimalistic and flexible, which starts with our gear. So there were 3 of us, and we all have a similar system. My system is a backpack and a duffel bag. That's it. That's all that goes with me, no matter how long I'm going for, no matter where I'm going. That's it. I don't check bags. The only time I have in the past 7 years checked a bag is when I'm going to somewhere really, 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 really cold, like a Fort McMurray, and I need to bring coveralls, winter boots, stuff that doesn't pack very well. So I'll check an additional duffel bag if I'm going really cold weather, but otherwise have not checked a bag. There are downsides to this because you are wearing the same clothes. You sometimes have to rewear clothes. You can't bring very much, but I think the upsides completely outweigh the downsides. We don't have time to have bags go missing. We don't have time to check stuff. There's just so much bullshit in checking bags, worrying about them, making sure everything's good to go, making sure it gets there. The airlines these days are a complete disaster, oftentimes completely incapable of doing very basic things, even though they're bankrolled by the government or governments around the world to endless sums of money. They still can't figure it out. And so if I can minimize my potential for issues, I'm going to choose that route. So I have a backpack with all of my camera gear, my computer, everything I need from an electronic standpoint. I have a book in there because I read every day, headphones for the plane, a notebook. I like to write every day. And then just cameras, 2 cameras always, a drone, and everything else. And then in my duffel bag, I'll bring a week's worth of shirts, a week's worth of underwear, socks, running clothes, running shoes, tennis shoes, my vest, my hard hat clips onto my backpack, and then just miscellaneous stuff beyond that, a down jacket in case it gets cold. And then I just bring 1 pair of pants, which is not the best strategy, but it's worked out so far. So I'm going to keep running with that. And then I make sure on the weekends we have somewhere that we can do laundry at. I clean my laundry, start over the next week, start over the next week, start over the next week. I don't need to bring anything else. And so with that system, we can fit in these smaller cars, especially like the ones that are in Europe. We can move really fast. We can get through cities really fast. We're not dragging big bags around. It's just so much more logistically simple when you pack really, really light. I go to the airport. I see some of the bags people are dragging through these airports, and it is insane to me. I don't even know how I could fit that much shit into some of these bags. And it might make sense for you going to Cabo for a week on vacation. You're going to the same place, bring a giant suitcase. You just check it once there, check it once on the way back, no problem. But for what we do, we have to be very, very diligent with everything we bring because it's on our body. So the more I bring, the more I have to carry. And if I don't need it, I'm not bringing it. So everything I bring is absolutely necessary. The only thing that's not absolutely necessary is a second camera, but I see that as absolutely necessary because if I were to break 1 camera, I'm somewhere in the middle of Iceland, I want to make sure I have a spare because that's what I'm there to do. That is my system. I will do a video on this at some point, just breaking down everything in my bag, everything in my duffel bag for anybody that cares. I don't know if anybody actually cares, but that's how we do it. As far as airport security is concerned, I think European airport security is more smooth than American airport security. We had great interactions with airport security every airport. Worst case, they pull your bag, which they typically do with us. We have pre-check in the United States. My bag doesn't get pulled that often, but in Europe, almost every time it did because the x-ray just can't see through all the equipment, so they'll take some out, run it through again, and then there's no dramas. I don't think no matter where I've been, China, Saudi Arabia, no matter where I've been, I haven't had any issues with camera equipment, but I've also been there on business and I've had a business visa, which definitely helps because there's a legitimate reason why I need all that stuff. But yeah, I've never had an issue with any of that kind of stuff, which is definitely a blessing. Third question, what country has the best food and what country has the worst food on this trip? I would say our least favorite cumulatively, all 3 of us, did not or not a fan of the Swiss food. I don't think Switzerland's known for its food. I think it's known for its Alps, its chocolate, its money, its investment banks. It's definitely not known worldwide for its food. I think for good reason. It's quite average, and so it's not terrible. But for how much you pay, it makes it terrible. 3 of us would go to dinner. It'd be $200 for a very normal dinner. No drinks, no drama, anything like that. $200. It's just it was just completely out of hand. Best food, I think by a long shot, Spain. I don't think anybody in Europe can even argue that. Everybody knows the Spanish. They know how to cook. It's absolutely spectacular, the food there. That we had paella one night, seafood paella right on the beach. I've still been thinking about that meal, man. It was absolutely delightful. So Spain's great. Denmark was really good. I think everywhere is pretty good. In Europe, in Western countries, in developed countries, Asia is the only place I've really struggled with food, just because it's so different than what I'm used to. But that's what I learned on the food. Gas stations, I would say my least favorite gas stations were Germany. They were very bland and terrible selection. I would say best gas stations, Switzerland had amazing gas stations, actually, and Denmark had amazing gas stations. Amazing. But the Swiss gas stations, they have like whole bakeries inside of them and amazing selection of food and drink. It wasn't a shithole. The cashiers, they weren't on drugs. There were people hanging out there. Like, they go to the gas station to hang out. So a wonderful gas station experience in Switzerland, in Denmark. But I do not. Windows not a fan of the Germany gas stations. Fourth question. What surprises me most about Europe? Every time I go to Europe, I guess construction aside, it's always spectacular how old it is being an American. In America, there's not a lot of old stuff. You go to the East Coast, that's as old as it gets. Still not that old. Still younger than all of Europe. And so going to Europe, it is spectacular just how old everything is and how many stone walls there are and how narrow the streets are, and everything about it is quite spectacular because of that age, which I think is, you can't replicate it. It just you have to let the clock run, and it gives it such a special feeling to Europe, I think. From a construction side of things, what surprises me most every time I go there is just how effective they are. It is so amazing to watch the Europeans work, because they are just so good and so specialized and so smart about how they allocate labor, how they allocate equipment hours, what kind of equipment they're using to begin with, their means and methods. It is just amazing to watch them work. It's so much fun, especially we go to these demolition sites. I go to a demolition site here in Tennessee, for example. We'll have an excavator with a bucket and a thumb. That's as good as it gets at a demolition site in the South. And yeah, there might be a little bit more than that, but I'm talking averages here. You go to a demolition site in Switzerland, you watch Eberhard work. Every machine is specialized for demolition. Every machine has oil quick. Every machine has 5 different work tools. And that operator is switching through those work tools, sometimes every few minutes, grabbing a different tool to apply that tool in the exact way it should be to do that job in the best way possible. It is so much fun to watch. And it's just a completely different way of working. I think, as I've alluded to, it's a glimpse into the future. It is where the United States is going. Europe has had to cope with a declining workforce, a declining population for a lot longer than we have. Most of the oldest countries, if you look at average age, are European nations and Japan. And so they've had to do more with less people. And the result is quite spectacular. And I think that's where the United States is going, because our birth rate now is starting to mirror Europe. Our demographics are starting to change dramatically. Our population is starting to age, and we are going to have to do more with less as well. But every time I go there, it still surprises me, after seeing as many companies as I have, just how good they are and how good they look, and everything about it is quite fun. What's the biggest difference between the dirt world in Europe versus the States? I have, again, alluded to this throughout these questions, but I will say it very simply. So Europe, for a few reasons, is more advanced than the United States when it comes to building. One, like I said, they're older. far older. So they've been building longer than we have. When you've been building longer, you have more constraints, you're better at building. 2, they're more dense, far more dense than the United States is. And so they have to build what they have to build in oftentimes very constrained areas, which means they've had to do more with less, which means they're better at building. 3, their population, oldest populations in the world. They've had that increasing age for a long time now. They don't have as many young people, so they've had to allocate their labor very, very efficiently and effectively. It's a glimpse into future. A lot of people say Europe is 10, 15, 20 years ahead. I would say they are in a lot of ways. I would say they aren't in other ways. It's not a perfect comparison, but I think if I were a contractor in the United States, I would be looking at the Europeans and what they're doing and asking myself how I can apply these things here. Some of the biggest differences: 1, work tools, equipment. Every machine is specialized for the task it is taking on. I think that is phenomenal, and you have some of the coolest machines in the world as a result. I touched on that. 2, everybody looks good. Perception is reality. Their construction workers look professional. They have head to toe, quite complex, oftentimes apparel, really nice stuff. It's branded with the company. It looks good. You can tell whose job site it is by looking at the people. And perception is reality. They've invested a lot in how their people look. I don't think we do that nearly enough in the United States. And why do certain professions do that? Like pilots, for example, they wear the pilot uniform, not for any real practical reason nowadays, but it's to give people confidence that, hey, these people know what they're doing. They're professionals. I can trust them to get this plane where it needs to go safely. I think the construction industry, it has this second-rate reputation for reasons outside of our control, but reasons also in our control. You look at some construction sites, people just look like a fucking mess. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way at all, because they're skilled craftspeople, they're skilled tradespeople. They should look professional like any other profession. And yeah, they're going to get dirty. I'm not saying they can't get dirty. They're obviously going to get dirty, but I think there's value in allowing people to look the part and look professional. And the Europeans invest a lot in the looks of their people. 2, they invest a lot in the looks of their overall job sites, equipment, and brands. I still drive by so many job sites in the United States, couldn't tell you who it is, have no idea. And I'm very well educated on the subject. I know what companies are in the area. I know what to look for. I still can't figure it out. That, I know companies will say, that's by design. We don't want people calling and bitching about whatever it is. It's okay. Yeah, cool. But it will, and already is, catching up with you from a brand standpoint. The young generation, next generation, they want to go to work for something cool. They want to go work somewhere cool. They want to work for a cool brand. The Europeans, they have really cool brands. They look really good. Their equipment is all branded, a lot of times painted. Their fences look good. Their people look good. Their job site trailers look good. Everything looks good. And when everything looks good, people typically have more pride in their work. And so it does create a return on investment. And it obviously does, because they all do it. So I think the branding out there is really phenomenal. Next, I think, like I said in the first question, I just think they're more engaging with the public. They get out ahead of what the heck they're doing and educate the public a lot more effectively than we do in the United States. Like we went to this big tunnel project connecting Denmark and Germany, and we were explaining that, yeah, it's oftentimes with these big mega projects, either very standoffish or hard to visit. And they couldn't even understand why. They're like, well, why? Don't they want more people to understand what's going on? Don't they want to engage with the public and educate the public and share with the public everything that's going on? They couldn't even understand why you would be adversarial or secretive. And unfortunately, I think in a lot of ways that's the norm in the United States. It's not always. I think, again, the great contractors are taking a different approach, but it oftentimes is standoffish with construction in the public. And as the dirt world, we can bitch about it, or we can say, all right, what should we do about it? And I think education, storytelling is a huge first step. So I think the Europeans are very proactive when it comes to engaging with the public as well. And then we can get into their training programs and education system, but those are bigger cans of worms. I just at least wanted to cover a few small things, anecdotal things that I've noticed after traveling to that many countries. And my hope is by sharing all of this, again, I can at least get maybe some American contractors to think, wow, hey, that's actually a really good way of doing things. Maybe we should do it like that here. I think a lot of people, the more traditional folks, they go into the protect and defend mode. No, we could never do that here because of XYZ. And they might actually be right. They might be right on XYZ. But I think the people that instead ask, why are they doing it that way? And how could we do it here? How might it work? Those are the people getting ahead right now. Those are the people that will win long term. I don't know that for a fact, but I am betting every horse I have, every dollar I have on that horse. All of my eggs are in that basket. And I hope to be a small part of helping to facilitate that. So that is a very brief Q&A. Some questions people asked me about our Europe trip. It was just a phenomenal trip. I can't wait to be sharing a lot of this with you guys here soon. We've got some other big trips in the works. Maybe Canada, maybe the Middle East again this year. I'll keep you all updated. Again, if you have questions, feedback for us, for me, for Harrison, for anybody at BuildWit, write us at dirttalk@buildwit.com. Thank you for sharing the program. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time. Stay dirty, everybody.